The Boston Red Sox 40-man roster is stacked right now, and it's going to be getting even better.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I'm here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And the best part, it's free. So make sure you tune in because Locked On is now the #1 sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Happy Thanksgiving. Welcome to the show. I am so thankful for all of you who continue to tune in to Locked On Red Sox and support the show day in and day out. I truly could not do it without you. Hope you're having a wonderful holiday spent with the people that you love and care about the most, because that's what this is all about, coming together and celebrating together and being thankful for the people around you. And I'm thankful for all of you, but I am also thankful for Boston Red Sox baseball. And it is getting to be a fun time of year with trades and free agency, and it should be really intriguing to see what the Red Sox do moving forward. They have a very stacked 40-man roster right now. I'm going to be going over what that 40-man roster looks like with anticipation that they're going to continue to add even more to that. So from a pitching perspective, obviously the Red Sox need work with their pitching. It's been pretty obvious that they need a #2 starting pitcher. They potentially could explore the relief market. Now, based on the trades that they made last week to trade away some relievers, they could be on the hunt for some reliable relief pitching this offseason, which is really exciting. But when it comes to the pitching right now, overall, they are in a good place. They have Brayan Bello, who primarily pitched as that #3 starter in 2025. He and Lucas Giolito could have gone back and forth in terms of who was considered the #2 starter and who was considered the #3 for the Red Sox. But in reality, at the end of the day, with where Brayan Bello is at now, he is a #3 starting pitcher. He's a guy who the Red Sox have that they can rely on generally. But when he struggles, he doesn't last very long in games. And the month of September that he had reaffirmed to me that he's a #3 and not a #2. So that's why there is a gap there in the #2 starting pitcher role where the Red Sox do need to fill that. And they need to find somebody who can be reliable to pitch in that #2 spot in the rotation with Brayan Bello as the 3. But Brayan Bello is definitely somebody who looked overall very good in 2025, just struggled in that last month. Hopefully that's something that he can turn around going into 2026, because it would be huge if we get even more productivity out of Bello than what we got from him in the 2025 season. Aroldis Chapman, back here for 2026, had the best season arguably of his career in 2025, American League Reliever of the Year. He was just so dominant and unexpectedly dominant. Nobody really thought that he was going to be that good, but Chapman was that good. Now, obviously, with him, he's getting older, so there's a risk that maybe in 2026, he's not necessarily as effective as he was in 2025, but we can still feel good about the fact that we still have a proven, established closer there, because what becomes an issue is if there is no established closer, the Red Sox are having to forcibly try to make somebody a closer, and that could end up backfiring for them. So the fact that Chapman is there, even if he isn't relied upon to be the closer as the whole season progresses, at least he's somebody who can pitch in high leverage, and he'll likely be somebody who will still be reliable enough to get the job done in those high leverage relief roles, even if it's not as a closer. Kutter Crawford, a guy who was reactivated off the 60-day injured list. He's a guy who missed the entirety of the 2025 season. So the question now becomes, is he going to turn back to form in 2026? Is he going to be somebody who's reliable? There's a question mark surrounding how the Red Sox are really even going to use Crawford when it comes to the 2026 season, because I'm sure he'll be fighting for a rotation spot. But at the same time, would the Red Sox feel like he's even capable of pitching in the rotation because of how much time he missed? They might want to ease him back into it and say, we're not going to give your arm that much work when you miss the entirety of the season, when we have other options in the rotation. It would be different if the Red Sox backs were against the wall and they didn't really have other options that they could throw into that rotation. But because they do, they can kind of make the Kutter Crawford decision wisely based on what they think is best for him and for the team going into 2026. So for Kutter Crawford, he's a guy who the Red Sox could really use in either situation, either as a starter or as a reliever. I'm just intrigued to see what direction they actually do decide to go in there, if they say you're a starter or if they say you're a reliever. So I'm intrigued by that for sure, and what type of role he's going to be used in, as well as Cooper Criswell, another player who is on the 40-man roster. Now, Cooper Criswell has been a big piece of the puzzle in terms of making spot starts and also pitching out of the bullpen. Now, obviously in 2024, he had a rotation spot for basically the entirety of the season because Garrett Whitlock was hurt. And that was back when the Red Sox were still in that mode of trying to make Garrett Whitlock a starter full time. So because he was hurt, Cooper Criswell earned a spot in the rotation for the season. But then in 2025, he was pitching out of the bullpen at first, and he struggled a lot. So then the Red Sox sent him down to AAA. He was pitching there, and then they called him back up again to make a couple spot starts during the regular season, and he pitched really well. And it really goes to show that maybe he's better off being used as a starter than he is as a reliever, in which case the Red Sox might use him as kind of a floater who sticks to AAA a lot of the time. But if somebody gets hurt or needs to take a start off, kind of like with Garrett Crochet, how they like to manage his workload if he misses a start, then Cooper Criswell could be somebody who comes in and pitches for him. But you have to wonder what the Red Sox plan is in terms of Cooper Criswell, because he's definitely a good security blanket to have. He's a guy who we've seen be reliable as a starter when he's made those spot starts. So it would be interesting to see if the Red Sox put him in that same type of role again moving forward. So then you have Garrett Crochet, the ace of the starting rotation, and no doubt about it, going to be the guy that's going to take you to the promised land, or whatever it is they say. The guy who's going to be your number one starting pitcher now for years to come, because the Red Sox also extended him. The guy who you know without a doubt that when he goes out there to pitch, he's going to give the Red Sox his best. He's going to give the Red Sox a good chance to win that game when he's out there pitching. There's no doubt about it. He is the Red Sox number one again going into 2026. The question again, like I brought up with Brayan Bello, is who are they going to slot in between there to pitch in between Crochet and Bello? That's the big question, and that's going to make or break the rotation going into the season, because for one, acquiring a number two pitcher would take a lot of pressure off of Garrett Crochet, and for two, on top of that, besides that, with Garrett Crochet, also, if they were to acquire a number two starting pitcher, it would also just allow for a lot more competitive of a rotation, because rather than forcing Brayan Bello to be the number two starting pitcher, you're getting a proven solidified number two. So then it's an easy transition from 1, 2, 3. So it's pretty obvious that it makes sense for the Red Sox to add somebody in between those two pitchers to really make things happen and make this a truly competitive rotation. Hunter Dobbins, an exciting pitcher who's young and has a lot of upside, and the Red Sox are definitely interested and intrigued by him and seeing more of what he can do. He got hurt in 2025 and ended up missing a lot of the season, but he's recovering very well, and the plan is for him to be back by spring training. So if he comes back for spring training and the Red Sox want to stick him in the rotation, I could totally see that happening, because then they'd have Garrett Crochet, a question mark, mystery pitcher, Brayan Bello, and then maybe Hunter Dobbins, and then one other pitcher that fills into that spot. But I really like the idea of Hunter Dobbins. He impressed a lot, has good natural stuff when it comes to his approach and his arsenal. And he's a guy who has been spoken very highly of by pitching executives within the Red Sox organization, like the Woo Sox pitching coach, Dan DeLuca, talked to me about it and said that Hunter Dobbins truly is somebody who he sees being really successful at the major league level. So I'm excited to see where he goes from here, because I think the Red Sox are very intrigued by Dobbins. I think there are a lot of upsides to him. And if he can stay healthy, I have no doubt that he'll probably be in the rotation in 2026. Shane DeRohan, a kid who just got activated to the active major league roster from AAA. He's pitched very well over the course of his time in the Red Sox minor league system. He has impressed with good swing and miss stuff, and he's a guy that the Red Sox are hoping could maybe be worked into their bullpen at some point in 2026. And there is a chance that maybe they would give him a chance in the rotation, especially if they have injuries or they feel like guys are struggling. Then maybe he's the guy that they throw into that rotation if need be, because they gave Connelly Early and Payton Tolle a chance in 2025. So maybe in 2026, they keep Drohan on their radar as a guy who they feel like could have potential. So they're kind of feeling out the situation right now with him. They don't really know what role he's going to fill, but they do know that they feel good and confident about him. So they're going to continue to play around with him on that 40-man roster. Connelly Early, who I just mentioned, made his major league debut in 2025 and really impressed. I mean, young kid who had made a handful of major league starts, and the Red Sox say, oh, by the way, you need to start in a do or die elimination game 3 in the Bronx, a hostile playoff environment. Good luck. And what did he do? He kept his composure so much. And his defense behind him, and also the Red Sox failing to score runs, was what failed him in that wild card game. It wasn't his lack of pitching well, because he did pitch well. It was everybody else around him. So there's a really bright future for Connelly Early. Now that he has the playoff exposure on the mound, that's going to fire him up moving forward, because now he wants to extra prove himself of saying, I really want to win a playoff game next time. So he's going to be super motivated going into 2026. Lots of impressive stuff with his arsenal there. He's a guy who the Red Sox, I'm hoping, keep around, and please don't trade him, because I truly think he could be a key piece of the Red Sox rotation in 2026 and beyond. Coming up, though, what does the rest of the Red Sox 40-man roster actually look like? Are you into sports betting? Or if you're not, you can get into it, because FanDuel will have you hooked. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NBA. It truly keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Plus, you can combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. So you can make multiple bets on the same game or bet on a few different games all in one day, and you can still win lots of money, which is cool. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. FanDuel is a great way to make lots of money while building all kinds of creative parlays. My husband does it all the time, and he makes so much money. He's actually pretty addicted to building his bets out on FanDuel. So check that out today and start winning money. What will the Boston Red Sox do to improve their roster this offseason? That is a pending question. The 40-man roster, as it stands right now, is likely not going to be what it is come spring training, and it really shouldn't be, because there are still holes to fill. But for right now, these are the players they have on the 40-man, and as long as these players are within the organization, the Red Sox see potential in them. So that's why it's still important to go over this. And then later on in the offseason, when we get closer to spring training, I'll compare and I'll see what the 40-man roster actually looks like at that point going into spring training. But I'm excited about the idea of some of these young pitchers. Richard Fitts is a guy I'm very intrigued by. His first couple starts in 2024 in a Red Sox uniform were very solid. And then he struggled in his final start of the season in the very last week of the regular season. And then he went and he worked on some things in the offseason, was in AAA, and then got called up to pitch at the major league level when Hunter Dobbins got hurt, and then he started to struggle, and then he got hurt. So I feel like it's been a very small sample size with Richard Fitts. We haven't truly been able to see what he can actually do and how good of a player he can actually be, because of the fact that he has just spent a lot of time injured. So that's part of it. And also just the fact that he just hasn't pitched a lot in the majors. So I am curious to see what kind of role the Red Sox put him in. I imagine him being more of a bullpen arm who maybe pitches multi-innings in relief if the Red Sox feel like they want to keep him up on the major league team. Or I wouldn't be surprised to maybe see him get some reps in Worcester, at least to get back into things before he gets called back up after being hurt and all of that. So I am really intrigued by him and what the Red Sox are hoping to get from him during the 2026 season. Kyle Harrison, this is an exciting one for me. Kyle Harrison was truly the centerpiece that came back in the Rafael Devers trade. Obviously, the Red Sox view the primary return as the Giants taking on all of Rafael Devers' remaining salary, but we shouldn't write off that Kyle Harrison is a good player that the Red Sox got back in return that they can work with and truly get him major league ready. He made his major league debut with the Red Sox towards the end of the season. He had gotten some taste with San Francisco of kind of what that all is like, but his Red Sox debut came towards the very end of the 2025 season, and he got playoff exposure, which is also huge. And he relieved. I don't think the Red Sox really know for sure yet what they want to do with him, but he's somebody who definitely will be competing for one of those rotation spots. Going into spring training, the Red Sox are going to be keeping an eye on Kyle Harrison because they're going to say, okay, this is a special talent. This is a kid who we feel can be somebody who can do big things for this team in 2026 and beyond, but we don't really know if he's quite there yet to the point where he can be a capable starter in that capacity. So if they end up going with somebody else and he doesn't fill one of those rotation spots, then they would make him a reliever, but they would probably continue to challenge him to stretch himself out and pitch multiple innings. So that way then he can transition more naturally into being a starter eventually. So I think a lot of this does have to do with how he looks in spring training and how other guys look in spring training. But I would not be surprised if the Red Sox come out and say that they want Kyle Harrison in the rotation, because I think there's definitely a shot. Jordan Hicks. Not really a whole lot to say about him other than the fact that he struggled. He also came over in the Rafael Devers trade. The Red Sox had been interested in him after the 2024 season when he was a free agent. He ended up going to San Francisco. So then he was brought to Boston in that Rafael Devers trade. And one thing that the Red Sox identified was that they just really like the fact that he gets swing and miss stuff. Because again, this is a common theme with Craig Breslow in the Red Sox front office, is they really care a lot about swing and miss stuff. And they felt like Jordan Hicks provided that. But the issue is that the command is not there. And a lot of his struggles that he had with this Red Sox team were because he just couldn't find the strike zone. I remember he came into a game that got severely delayed by rain. So most of the game was played. And then it started downpouring right before the bottom of the ninth inning. And the Twins had to come up and hit. They were playing the Twins in this game because they couldn't really call the game because it was in the middle of the inning. So the Twins needed the chance to take their at-bats per the rules. They can't just say, okay, the game's over if the home team doesn't get a chance to hit. So they needed to hit. Jordan Hicks came in relief and blew it because he just couldn't find the strike zone, was walking people left and right. That was the biggest issue with him. And then the Red Sox put him on the IL. Coincidental? I think not. They will never admit that they dropped the ball with him because that was just too big of a trade for them to say that they didn't get good pieces back. So they will do everything that they possibly can to try to get Hicks into form to be an effective reliever for this Boston Red Sox team. But right now he is not. And I'm just a little bit worried about how things could go there. Tanner Houck. He is a guy who generally has been impressive with the Boston Red Sox over the course of his career. He's a guy who pitched very reliably in 2024. He's dealt with some injuries, and then he missed most of the 2025 season with an injury. He had a few really terrible starts to start 2025. So then the Red Sox were trying to figure out what was going on there. It was announced that he was going to the IL and had to get surgery, and then he ended up missing the rest of the season. So that was truly a bummer because he could have been a big piece of the Red Sox rotation in 2025. And it's looking like he's going to miss a lot of, if not all of 2026 too, because of his recovery. But the issue that I have when it comes to Tanner Houck is, how do we know how sharp he's going to be when he comes back? We have seen pitchers come back from surgery and not be the same pitcher that they were. And that can be a good thing and that can be a bad thing. So you don't really know. So taking a chance with Tanner Houck when he does come back, I understand him wanting to be in the rotation and the Red Sox wanting him in the rotation, but they can't bank on him being a very reliable starter unless he comes out and is able to show that he still has that in him. So I really liked a lot of what Tanner Houck gave us prior to that injury, but there's definitely still some reservations there when it comes to where he's at and how effective he's going to be. So keep an eye on Tanner Houck, and we'll get more updates on him and his recovery. But when he does come back, it'll be interesting to see what kind of role they do put him in. Zach Kelly had kind of a resurgence in 2025. He's a guy who's always been kind of hit or miss in the Red Sox pen. When he's on, he's very on. When he's not on, he's very much not on. And there's not really a full in-between with him. So when it comes to Kelly, I'm looking at him as a guy who the Red Sox definitely believe a lot in, because he had some big relief appearances for the Red Sox in 2025. And he was actually relied on in a lot of situations in which he had to go out there when the Red Sox had base traffic that they had given up to the other team. And then he came into the game and he was able to get out of it. Now, on that same side, there were other times where he wasn't able to get out of it. So that's something to monitor with Zach Kelly, is that he is a little bit inconsistent, but I do like the fact that the Red Sox decided to believe in him and give him a shot in 2025, because he definitely showed potential there for sure. Giovanni Moran. This one is an interesting one because he is a player who was hurt. So he had been activated from the 60-day injured list by the Worcester Red Sox earlier on in the season. He has previously played in Major League Baseball for the Twins. He only played in 2 games in 2025, giving up 3 earned runs in those games with a 6.75 ERA and a 2.0 whip. So obviously he kind of got shoved around, but again, tiny sample size because he only pitched in a couple games. So the question's going to be, do the Red Sox believe in him going into the 2026 season? Is he a guy that the Red Sox see as somebody who could compete for a spot in that bullpen most likely, or do they feel like he's not really needed anymore, in which case then they could DFA him? So it's really hard to talk a lot about a guy like that just because it's a really small sample size for him and we don't really know what's going to happen with him from here or where he's going to go. But I'm definitely intrigued to see if the Red Sox do hang on to him, if he's able to pitch effectively. Louis Perales. Now, this is a fun pitcher to watch. He is a top prospect in the Red Sox system. He's a guy that the Red Sox are truly hoping will pan out. He's a guy who's on the cusp probably of making it to the major league team. He's been pitching very well in the minors. He's a guy that has had a lot of attention as of late, could potentially be used as a trade piece this offseason. Wouldn't that be something if the Red Sox pulled off a trade for a key player that could help their team now, so they end up moving him? So that's definitely something to look out for. I'm not ruling that out, the idea of him being traded, but if he's still here, there's definitely a lot of potential there. If he gets called up, I definitely feel like he can be competitive. It might take him some time and some growing pains, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him and his potential shine on the big stage. But coming up, what do the rest of the Red Sox pitchers look like going into the 2026 season? Don't forget that Locked On Red Sox is available on any podcast platform Monday through Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in every day and making it your first listen of the day. And also thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We truly here at Locked On would not be able to do that without you. And we're also elevating ourselves, adding a subscription service on Subtext so you can subscribe, and it's 2 weeks free. And if you like it, then there's a payment plan later on, but you would get one-on-one texting with me directly to ask a lot of your Red Sox related questions that I can answer. You'll be the first to hear about Red Sox breaking news. You'll be the first to see my interviews with players, coaches, etc. And you'll just feel like such an insider because you'll know things that other people don't know. So be sure to subscribe to Subtext. The link is in the YouTube description of this video. As I go over what the Red Sox 40-man roster looks like right now, which I will continue to do on tomorrow's episode too. Today's episode has been all about looking at the pitchers on the 40-man, so I'll examine the other positions on tomorrow's show. But what I find really interesting is how many young pitchers that the Red Sox have that could emerge. David Sandlin is one of those pitchers that the Red Sox recently activated, called up from AAA to the major league roster because he is a guy who has impressed at the minor league level, plays with confidence, and the Red Sox feel like he's a guy that they can believe in and trust to be able to do big things for their team in 2026 and beyond. And what I really like about him is that he just has that dog mentality. He's a guy who never backs down from pressure. If he has a bad outing, he bounces back very easily and doesn't let it eat him alive. And that's that strong mentality that you need to succeed at the major league level. So for him, that's going to be a cool experiment for the Red Sox, is to see, can Sandlin step up when it matters the most? And that's always a big question mark with young talent, is can they handle that pressure of pitching at the major league level when there's suddenly a lot more attention on you? So I like the idea of them giving some of these kids a chance in the majors, but I am intrigued to see how they respond to that, and he is one of them. Patrick Sandoval, another pitcher who it's tough to talk about. He missed the entirety of the 2025 season. The Red Sox brought him in prior to that, and it was known that he likely wouldn't return until after the All-Star break. But then after the All-Star break became not for the rest of the season. So he's an experimental guy too, because the Red Sox don't really know where to put him. There's no way to sit here and feel confident in how he's going to look as a pitcher. Also, again, this goes back to that common theme of you don't know how a pitcher is going to look when they come back from injury. And he definitely falls into that category of being a guy who there are still question marks surrounding how he's going to look. I think the Red Sox are open to different avenues by saying, we could have him pitch in long relief. He could fight for a starting spot, but most likely, because he missed the entirety of the season, he'll probably get the Kutter Crawford treatment, and they'll kind of see where they're at in terms of their arm strength and durability and their ability to pitch for long stints or not. And then that'll determine what role they play. But I am curious to see how he pitches here, because he could end up being a really good dark horse player that could be one of the Red Sox team MVPs if he's on point. How cool would that be? So I'm intrigued to see Patrick Sandoval for sure. Justin Slaten, one of the Red Sox high leverage relievers, obviously has dealt with injuries over the last couple seasons. So that's something that I'm definitely still a little bit concerned about with him. But when he pitches well, he truly is one of the best relief pitchers on the team. Alex Cora can trust him, no problem, and high leverage. He's a guy who could go in before Garrett Whitlock or before Aroldis Chapman. And he could go out there and he could take care of business in the 7th or 8th inning and no stress. And he did have some bad outings in 2025, but I do kind of blame the Red Sox organization a little bit for that, because I felt like they kind of rushed him back from injury. He was hurt, and then all of a sudden he was coming back because the Red Sox felt like they needed him in the bullpen. So I think part of the reason he struggled late in the year was because they kind of rushed him back a little bit prematurely and sooner than he should have been called back up. So I would have given him more time to recover. But again, I'm not the Red Sox, so I don't make that decision. But I do think after a healthy offseason and resting his arm, he'll go back to usual form in 2026 and be one of those dominant relievers for the Red Sox. Now, Payton Tolle is an interesting one. He's currently on the Red Sox 40-man roster. He's a guy who the Red Sox definitely have faith in. He has a fastball that certainly plays at the major league level, but the problem with Tolle is that he doesn't have great secondary stuff. He still needs to work on developing those secondary pitches outside of his fastball, and his fastball definitely does play in the majors, but because he needs a little bit more time, I don't know that the Red Sox would force him into the rotation in 2026. I could see them wanting to let him develop a little bit more and then have him pitch in the pen and then maybe reevaluate things down the road if things are going well for him. But overall, with where he's at right now, I feel like the Red Sox would say, here, you can pitch in the bullpen, and then once you start to develop some more pitches, then maybe it gets to the point where we try to throw you into the rotation. But essentially, he's a pitcher who the Red Sox may trade. And that's another thing, too, to keep in mind, is that Tolle might not even be here to start the season in 2026. So that is another interesting thing to keep in mind, is do they really want to be that adamant about hanging on to him, or would they be willing to move him if it meant addressing another key piece of the roster? So he's up for grabs right now. To me, I think he's somebody who could be moved and may not be on this roster at some point. Tyler Uberstein, another pitcher the Red Sox called up recently from AAA, a guy who they want to give a shot in the majors, a guy who they were truly impressed by when he pitched in the minor league system. And Uberstein has great swing and miss secondary stuff, great swing and miss stuff. That's the type of pitcher that Craig Breslow likes, that fits his profile. So I think he's really high on Tyler because I think he feels like he's somebody who can no doubt be a difference maker. But because they have all these young pitchers that they're calling up to give a shot, they definitely have to have a backup plan in case they aren't ready and they have to get sent back down to AAA. So that's something the Red Sox are going to have to think about this offseason, but I definitely don't mind the idea of giving him a shot and making sure that he's up to par with where he needs to be in order to keep him in the majors. But this is going to be great experience for these young pitchers. And it really shows that the Red Sox are turning the chapter. They believe in their talent that they have internally, and they're ready to go and fight for a World Series championship with that young talent and hopefully adding a couple of key pieces to put them over the top. So I'm excited to see what Uberstein can do. Now, Greg Weissert has been so inconsistent. Overall, was not a bad pitcher, but because he was overused so much early on in the season, he was clearly fatigued later on and had him not be as effective. And that's what I'm hoping Alex Cora can avoid in 2026 is overusing him. Because what we have seen from Greg Weissert is a guy who definitely has good natural stuff. But the problem is when he's fatigued, things just go completely south. And the thing with Weissert that I'm looking at is I don't trust him in high leverage. He needs to be a low leverage reliever if the Red Sox are going to use him. He cannot pitch in those high leverage situations. So I'm looking at him and saying, yep, low leverage relief pitcher, 1 inning guy, and that's it. So I'm looking at that situation and I'm saying, do not throw Greg Weissert in high leverage unless he shows that he has the capability to truly pitch in high leverage situations and come through. So I'm curious to see how things go with him. But finally, for pitchers, we have Garrett Whitlock, who I have talked about already before on this show today. A guy who likely has a chance to fight for the closing role going into 2026. It depends how much the Red Sox truly believe in Aroldis Chapman. Is he somebody that they feel is going to be able to close games effectively going into 2026? Or do they feel like they need to have him be maybe more of the 7th or 8th inning guy and move somebody else into the closing role? I think it all is dependent on how Chapman pitches. But Garrett Whitlock, no doubt, is one of the best relievers on this team. So he will pitch in those high leverage situations regardless. It's just a matter of where he actually pitches within this Boston Red Sox pitching group. If it's in the 8th inning, 7th inning, or 9th inning is still to be determined. But there you have it. That is what rounds out the 22 pitchers on the Red Sox 40-man roster. Be sure to tune into tomorrow's show for another breakdown of this 40-man roster that involves more of the position players and what the Red Sox still need, who's going to step up. Be sure to tune into that. Thank you, as always, for tuning into Locked On Red Sox every single day and making it your first listen of the day. Like I always say, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.